All right, welcome back, dear viewers. I got another deep dive module review for you. Curse of the Daughtersbrides by James Edward Raggi. Should be a quick video. Wanted to get something out before the weekend's end. Before we get into it, though, if you're new to my channel, this is what I do. I play games. I record myself playing those games. I then talk about those games. I got nothing against the flip through review, but sometimes I find you really don't get anything out of them, and you end up spending like 40 to 60, maybe even more, on some snazzy, well-produced book that really is not at all fun. But then there's these indie games that are like maybe a few bucks on Drive-Thru RPG or something that just end up being awesome, and that's what my channel's about. If you like that, sounds interesting, please hit like and subscribe and the bell icon. I really appreciate it. I do have a blog where I talk about stuff, games and advice and theory and weird ideas. Please check that out as well. Link will be in the description. Testing out some new audio equipment too, so hopefully it still sounds good. But anyway, let's get into it. Curse of the Daughtersbrides. By James Raggi, the guy behind Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It's the PDF is $4.99 at Drive-Thru, and you can get a physical copy at the LOTFP web store for €15. The cover art you see here is by Yannick Bouchard, who's a classic artist for Lamentations, and I think he does an awesome job. I absolutely love his art. And inside we got maps and other images by Glenn Seal. Very nicely done. I'm going to do my best not to spoil too much with this module, but it might be a little difficult to do because, I mean, this module really breaks a lot of the rules of RPGs. It's a railroad, a bit of a railroad. There's little to, oops, that should say no. Always get at least one typo in these things. Anyway, no player agency. There's really no monsters. There's not really any treasure, and we're dealing with some topics that are kind of spicy, and I'm going to do my best not to upset the algorithm. But the thing is, this module works. I actually want to run it again. The first run through, I actually had a player do his best to try to avoid what's supposed to happen, and kind of well, it was a learning experience for myself, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we do this deep dive. But yeah, number one, it is a bit of a railroad. The PCs show up to this village that's in the middle of like this festival, and it's supposed to be this wonderful thing, but when they arrive, it's a scene of carnage because there was a curse placed upon the villagers by a magic user who really hated this family here that you see, and because of some special magic about the family, the curse bounced off of them and affected everybody else. And the moment your characters interact with someone who's still alive in the town, they get cursed, and there's no save. The players are stuck. They have to figure out how to save themselves, and there is a possibility, it really is up to the game master's discretion, that they can't save themselves. But yeah, that's like the setup. Like, they're stuck. They have to figure this out, and because they're cursed. No monsters. This might be a bit subjective, and maybe you may even find it cliched to say the real monsters are the player characters, but that's kind of like what happens here, because the players are going to have to do some pretty wild stuff to try to survive. There is because the curse is triggered when an uncursed living person interacts with a cursed person. James, in his devious way, has created a random encounter table as other festival goers start showing up. So the players are walking around the Sea of Carnage trying to figure out, how to end this curse, and then all of a sudden a family on a wagon shows up. Right? Or maybe some soldiers on leave show up, Or maybe there's a survivor who's lost his mind in a bell tower with a couple arquebuses that start shooting at him. I mean, things can go crazy real quick. The magic user, he's lost his mind because of what happened. He's kind of somewhat sympathetic. And then you have this family who just wants to escape this town because they're afraid they're going to get blamed for the curse because of who they are. So, yeah, the player characters are probably the monsters. Maybe, I don't know. You might have a different play experience. Um, there really isn't any treasure. I mean, there is if your players don't mind picking through the bodies of dead villagers and looting their now empty homes. But there's no grand treasure to really be hunted. I mean, that's not why they're there. I mean, this is one of those modules you just kind of drop on your players as they're traveling somewhere, unless you can contrive something. Like I did for my one shot, where the players were asked by the magnificent Jupe Van Ooms to go talk to the old man of the I can't remember the name of the family now off the top of my head, but he wants them to talk to him about something, and that's why they're sent to this festival, and then they walk in on the carnage. So, all right. So yeah, we have the sympathetic victims of this module are a family of women and their father groom, and there's a really interesting backstory to this whole family. The book actually has a family tree, so you can see like how everything just comes from him, and yeah, that's yeah, and he's doing this because there's some sort of prophecy he's trying to fulfill, and it's just not working out for him. So he's got wives and daughters as old as 56, 60, and some daughters that when they come of age will become his brides. Anyway, but yeah, what's twisted about it is they're like the sympathetic victims. They were just targeted because this magic user found them to be an abomination, and they just want the players to get them out of this village to protect them. So yeah, things didn't quite go that way in my one shot. Things got kind of crazy, actually. But yeah, so there's that, and then there's this the self-deletion part of the curse. Basically, when the curse is triggered, well, first the player characters get cursed, and they know they're cursed, and they know what's going to happen. But then it gets triggered. There's nothing stopping them to self-deletion, and not to be unsympathetic to people who have struggled with this. The idea is to sort of have some fun with it and be as gruesome and wild with it as you possibly can. I mean, because this is, and we're going to get to this in just a minute, a horror scenario. I mean, one of my players just set his gunpowder on a light. He just blew himself up. But I mean, you see, but that's the curse, and that's what this is. And I'm going to argue that this particular module is very much in the same vein as Death, Love, Doom. I've talked about that module in the past. It's very personal, and James is sort of presenting something very personal, but in a gameable format and I find somewhat insightful. I mean, the very notion of self-deletion being something that's always in the back of our minds, but then it gets triggered and it can spread to someone else. This sort of like level. Take it for what you will. I'm not saying you should write a doctorate thesis about the phenomenon using Curse of the Daughtersbrides, but I only bring this up because James is not treating it flippantly. There's a really thoughtful essay in the beginning of this module addressing it. So I don't think people should be shy away from this because of the themes. Like, it's treated fairly, artistically, and honestly. So all of these things, we have a couple icky themes that are kind of difficult for people to swallow. Railroads, no treasure, no monster, like all this stuff that sort of seems to be like the anti-module, but it really works. I mean, because this is horror. Like, and if you think about a good horror film, the characters have very little choice, and they have to figure out how to break the game in a sense to survive and do what they can to survive. And this particular module, the imagery is tough. Like the map of the village is like surrounds like this field where the festival is taking place, and it's just carnage. Men, women, children, even the dogs and chickens are trying to off themselves. And even there's even a house that you walk into, and there's some babies crying because they can't do what the curse is demanding of them. You know, it's tough. It's tough. The MU has lost his mind, and he's like inconsolable. And then you have these random encounters that show up where forces the players to act in a way that they may not want to act. But to me, it's horrific. It is a horrific, uncomfortable situation that your players are in, and I think that's one of the reasons why this works. And I think if you're into horror one-shots, you should definitely consider this module. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. What is absolutely hilarious in a morbid sort of way is that this module also gives you something that is useful outside of the module, and that is you have a new Lamentations of the Flame Princess character class called the Daughtersbride. Basically, you can pick some lady from the family tree, and she is your character. They have some interesting abilities. They're also pretty tough as far as like their hit dice. They have D8, but they're immune to disease. They nullify all sexual desire when you're in their presence, and they're immune to magic, and they can nullify it. And if there's a saving throw involved, they have this thing where called fractured magic, where it bounces off them and something weird happens. And they also can ignore the maximum possible damage on a die. So if someone swings a normal sword at them and rolls max damage 8, they ignore it, and there's no reroll. They just ignore it. So they're like this weird, twisted, magical character class. Like, I don't really know how to describe it, other than to say it's a twisted paladin, because there's an ethos. Like, they have to, much like a paladin, has got to be like this religious sort of warrior. The Daughtersbride must attribute all their success to the father groom, and there has to be no doubt their love for the father groom and the father groom's love for them. Raggi actually says that if a player playing this character says something out of character, they're just like joking. You know, they've lost their abilities, and they have to atone. They have to seek penance. And then there's a tithe. 50% of all treasure and income has to go back to the family. So this is like, I don't know if this was conscious or not, but this is kind of like a twisted Lamentations paladin class. Not much of a fighter, but other than they have a lot of hit points, and they're going to be immune to magic, and can tough out some of the more gruesome hits. Maybe they're like a tank class of sorts. I don't know how you'd want to use them, but definitely, and what's the word I'm looking for? Out of the box, off the wall, completely out of left field. You know, fill in idiom here. Character class. I certainly wouldn't have any problems including them in my Lamentations of Elemental Evil game or any campaign, because they're just so weird and twisted. So the $64,000 question: should you pick this up? Well, I think dropping this into an ongoing campaign without any warning could lead to a mutiny at your table. And what do I mean by that? Well, like I said, there's like no agency. Once the curse hits, the players have to deal with it, and they're stuck. If they don't, like if they just leave the town, they're still cursed, and now they're spreading the curse across your entire game world, and they're gonna die. I mean, they have to off themselves if the curse is triggered. And so if you have like 5th, 6th, 7th level characters, or even 12th level characters, even a 20th level character is going to get cursed, and that's it. So if you're going to use this in a campaign, you should start seeding something about this, like something about the family and potentially, I don't know. The book does recommend some possible ways to lift the curse, but you could also say that the curse doesn't lift, and it's just the players have to make sure no one survives. So the curse doesn't spread. And we've certainly seen movies, horror movies, where that is a very difficult choice, but the choice the true heroes make, right? They, for in an effort to have this alien thing escape the ship, they blow the ship up, right? So you're kind of in that situation. I do think this is great for a one shot, especially if you like doing Halloween one shots like I do. This would be really gruesome and kind of, well, I think it would be fun. It'll be a fun time as your players try to avoid, offing themselves. So the PDF I think is totally worth it. As far as the physical copy, they're available. I own them, and if you're a collector, you should certainly pick it up. Plus, there's some replayability value insofar as you have a new character class in the book, so it might be worth picking up, on that alone. So, but yeah, that's it. Curse of the Daughtersbrides. I do want to point out again the lack of player agency actually prompted an individual who was in my one shot to try to do everything he could to not even avoid, like just break the game and not do what he was in a sense supposed to do because of the curse, which kind of led to some chaos and the game itself breaking down. So if you don't have players that are like happy to be like, oh, I'm playing a horror scenario and I'm going to die horribly, don't use something like this. If you have players that are very much like, into their characters, and this is just going to upset people. But anyway, I'm a fan, and I'm glad I picked it up. But you might just need a PDF if you want to like sort of see whether or not this is right for you. So, all right, well, that's all I have, dear viewers. I'm working on I don't want to say essay, but a blog post to kind of bounce off or clarify and work off of my No More Fantasy Heartbreakers video. I wanted to address a few things that I've seen in the indie scene about the OSR. So stay tuned for that. And I got some stuff coming down the pike, including a module that will be published through the Red Room very soon for the Wretched Interbellum game. I'll do a short on that in the next month or so, couple weeks. So, but anyway, as always, thank you for your support. I do appreciate it. Peace.